Hello people, welcome back to my channel Fitness Geek. In today's video we are working on a demo for infrastructure as a code with Terraform. We will be doing everything on Azure. We are just going through the tutorial provided by Terraform. If you go to the tutorials in Terraform official website, you'll have a quick learning crash course that you can just start with. It's a very good point to start. This is my entire setup. I've got Azure subscription. This is my Visual Studio Code. It's all set up. If you haven't watched my previous video, then you can go ahead and check that out. I've got a couple of folders, and there's a main.tf, variable.tf. We will all explore this when we go ahead in this video. So Terraform gives you a few getting started courses that you can get it from the official website. This is for Azure RM. So this is basically it will introduce you to infrastructure as code with Terraform. So as it says, you can build, change, and manage your infrastructure in a safe, consistent, and repeatable way by defining resource configurations that can be versioned, reused, and shared. So it gives you lots of benefits if you use Terraform. I mean, you can repeat the configurations. You have a state file to know what exactly you already have and what more resources that you want to create. So all those things come like those things are part of Terraform. So if you go through this tutorial, I'll share the link of this tutorial in the description, so you can just go ahead and start going through and reading through it, what exactly the documentation says about Terraform as infrastructure as a code. So as a practitioner, you just write your code, you plan it, and you apply. And since it is cloud agnostic, you will get, like, it depends, like if you are using Google uh, GCP, or you're using AWS, or you're using Azure, or any supported cloud provider, you can just use that and you are good to go. So you just need to learn how Terraform works, and then you become then you don't care what your cloud provider is. It is basically uh, one solution that can be applied to any of the cloud providers. So first part is to install Terraform. We have installed Terraform in our previous video. I will share that here. And so yeah, you will have to, like, if you're using Windows, you can go ahead and install the MSI files and install it. If you have Mac, or if you have Linux, you can, yeah, this page will tell you how to install it. I have already installed it, so let me just do a Terraform help. So yeah, we have Terraform already installed in our system. Going ahead, so this particular Azure related tutorial, I'm just going through as someone who has not used it, or someone who doesn't know anything about Terraform. So I'll just follow what they say, and we're gonna just use what they are providing here to create the resources, and how to apply and how to destroy everything that they tell us. We will be doing that. So let's get started. So we have already got Terraform installed. So we will build the infrastructure. This is the example that we have. So you'll deploy a resource group. So resource group, as we all know, is like a kind of a container, to isolate all the resources that have a similar life cycle, and you can destroy everything at once and create everything at once. Prerequisites: we have got an Azure subscription. We don't have, so we have got this Fitness Geek resource group in it. And we don't have any resources. We will be creating resources with Terraform. We have got Terraform, we have got Azure CLI as well. Azure CLI, how to install Azure CLI, we have a video in our channel for this as well. You can use that to install Azure CLI. So yeah, first we will be authenticating to the Azure subscription using the Azure CLI. You go to the Visual Studio, you use the terminal, AZ login, you log in into your Azure, and we have successfully logged in into our Azure subscription. If you see the subscription name, Fitness Geek Demo, and Azure Cloud is our cloud name, which is like the cloud provider. So we have all the details of our subscription here. Okay, so I'm just following what the course, what the tutorial says. So, and let's go back to our tutorials. It asked us to to log in to our subscription. Next bit is to create a service principal. Service principal is nothing but a connection between our current session, our Terraform and our subscription in Azure. So it will have some permissions to create, resources or manage resources. So if you are well versed in Azure, you know what a service principal is. So it is just like it's not a user, but it's very much like an identity. So you create that and you use the client IDs and password, and you'll be able to authenticate into your subscription. So we will be using that as the command says. Is the account set subscription? So let me set my subscription to my Fitness Geek Demo subscription. Let me copy my ID. Yeah. So I'm doing this in real time. I'm not going to, edit anything. So if I make mistakes, I make mistakes just like anyone. So let me try to copy that. For some reason, my mouse is behaving really weird, and yeah, probably it's dying. I'm using my touchpad for now, and it's really inconvenient. Yeah, so AZ account set subscription and my subscription ID. Let me do that. It is done. I don't have any other subscription, so I don't have to do it. But if you have multiple subscriptions, you need to make sure that you're on your correct subscription. So now we create our service principal. Let me just copy that. So it's just creating an identity. So for us, let me paste that in Notepad so I can edit what I want to. So if you see, the permission for this is contributor. As we all know, contributor will give it all the access, almost everything other than the providing the access to others. Like it's only the owner of a subscription who can actually add users. Contributor can do everything other than adding users. So yes, so let me change my subscription, and that's it. It will create a service principal with contributor permission, and the scope is my subscription. Let me run that. Creating contributor role assignment under scope blah blah blah. So it gives you it spits out the app ID, display name, password, and everything. So if you want to actually see where this gets created, so you go to your Active Directory, then you go to your app registrations, and if you see this one, yeah, so we have created this one. This is the one that we have created just now. If you see the display name, Azure-CLI, Azure-CLI with the timestamp. Okay, cool. So we have that now. So the next bit is to set your environment variable. So we're going to use all this, the app client IDs for this service principal to connect to Azure subscription. And obviously you don't want to store that in the configuration file. It's always good to store all the secrets and all the IDs that you don't want in plain text in your code, to store it in environment variables, or somewhere else, like a password manager or something. uh, in our scenario, we will be just keeping that in PowerShell environment variables. We'll just use PowerShell to store them in environment variables. This is the sample code that Terraform has provided. So it's not doing much. There's a Terraform actual block which tells you what providers you need, and then creates a resource group. So if you go through the entire course, this it also shares lots of information on each block, what it does, and what a resource block does, was what a Terraform block does. So if you read through it, you will get more insights. But if I tell you what a Terraform block is, it Terraform block gets all the required provider names and the versions and the source, and all those details are there in the Terraform block. Resource block, as the name says, has the resources. So let me copy this and let me paste it over here. Now we have all these values in our terminal. Let me go to my terminal. Actually, you can copy it from here as well, from app registrations. So it will have the IDs. Let me paste this here. Next is client secret. So client secret was in our CLI password. I mean, this, I'm not hiding all these passwords because this is a trial subscription. So yeah, it won't matter. It would be actually, you know, it won't even be working once this video is released. So yeah, but yeah, when you're doing any demo videos on your actual subscriptions, make sure you hide all these values. Yeah. Because if someone can just start using it, he has control over your subscription as a contributor, which is very unsafe. The subscription ID, I'll get it from here. Let me paste it here. And the last is the tenant ID. So tenant ID, yeah, you will get it from your Azure directory or your app registration. So you can go there. If you see the directory tenant ID, yeah, that one. Let me paste it here. And all right, so it's time for us to store these environment variables. Yep. So I mean, you can just, if you're familiar with PowerShell, how to store it, you just need to run that in the terminal one by one or all at once, whatever you like. Let me do it one at a time. Client ID, copied. Okay, let me paste it. Oh, come on. Yeah, as I said, my mouse is behaving a bit weird, so I'm using touchpad. I think I did not copy it. Let me copy it again. Yeah, it is copied. Okay, so that is done. Let me do all of them one by one. Subscription ID. then the tenant ID. Yep. So Terraform, I mean, it is expecting these environment variables to connect to the subscription. So these are the only, the ARM underscore, the client ID or underscore or client secret. These are the values it is expecting from the environment variables. It will look there, and if it finds it, it will use it to connect. So you don't have to provide these values anywhere else. Once you have set it, you are good to go. Then the right configuration, so we'll create our configuration files. So each file in Terraform, when you write when you write your infrastructure as code, is called a configuration file. The first part of the configuration file is a Terraform block. It configures your provider, like which cloud provider and all those things. So let me just copy paste the code. So there's a Terraform block. The source is Hashicorp Azure RM. The version is 3.0.2, and the required version, that is the Terraform version. The provider is Azure RM, and the resource group. So the resource group is the resource we are going to create in this block of code. So resource, this is a block which is actually used to define your infrastructure. This is where you will say if you want a SQL server, or you want a networking VNet, you want any resource. It's just a block that to tell Azure to create this particular resource. So how the coding looks like is like the resource block, and then the name of the actual resource which Terraform understands, and then a name identifier that you give. So for example, here it is Azure RM resource group, and that's a Terraform defined name for creating an Azure resource group. And RG is the name that I gave it. It's an identifier for me to call this particular resource whenever I want. Name is fitness geek -rg. Location is UK South. Yeah, so we are in the wrong directory. Let me go to the correct directory. CD microservices, yes. And let me run the Terraform init again. So we are currently initializing our folder. I mean, it's like initializing Terraform here. So what this is gonna do is it will initialize the backend. It will download the plugins and everything else that is needed. So once you run Terraform init, it has successfully initialized. As it says, you can now work on this Terraform. Try running Terraform plan. So the three lines of codes that's important in Terraform is the Terraform init, Terraform plan, and then Terraform apply. And since I'm just trying to go through this course without even uh, considering myself someone who has already been using for a long time, so I'm just following the instructions there and creating the resources as All right, so let's see next. Okay, let's do Terraform plan. All right, this is not correct. Uh, okay, so if you see on top, when I pasted the code here from Terraform, I did not save this particular main.tf. If you see, there's a gray dot next to my main.tf. That means I have not saved the code, so it doesn't see any code. It's not able to identify anything in these configuration files. So I will have to save this file first. Okay, so let me save it, Control S, and that should do it. So it's now saved. Let me run the Terraform plan again. Okay, so there is a dependency lock. Okay, so if you read through the error, so let me initialize it again as the error says. Yeah, because once the first time when we ran the init, there was no actually code in our main.tf, so it just did run through, but it did not download the plugins. So now when we ran the Terraform init, it downloaded all the plugins that we provided in the Terraform block. So if you see, it creates this folder, and then there's a Terraform provider Azure RM version.exe. So Terraform init ran successfully. It downloaded all the plugins that we will need to run this block of code. Then we do a Terraform plan. So Terraform plan actually creates a execution plan from your code. So what it does is it compares your existing infrastructure with the infrastructure you have defined in your code. And if there is any changes, it will tell you, like if it is going to create something, or if it is going to destroy something, or if there will be an in place change. So if you see this, it's going to create this resource group. So it's very self-explanatory. I've already got this subscription. I mean, I don't have any resource group, so it's gonna create it. If a resource group already existed, it would say like nothing to change, and it already exists. Next command is a Terraform format. So if you read through it, it is a command that will update your configuration in the current directory for readability and consistency. Our code is very simple, so it doesn't have much things to do. It won't change anything, but let me just run it for the sake of completing this demo course. FMT format. I've been working on Terraform for a long time, but I haven't used Terraform format much, to be honest. Then you run a Terraform validate. So Terraform validate is actually checking for any syntax errors. So if you read through this, to make sure your configuration is syntactically valid and blah blah blah. So yeah, that's what it does. We have done that. our configuration file is valid. Okay, it's time to run the Terraform apply. So Terraform apply is where the resources or the changes that Terraform plan told us about will be executed. So if you see, it again tells you what's it gonna do. So if you see, there's a plus sign, green plus sign, so that means it's gonna create something. For destroy, it would be a minus red destroy. For change, it would be a tilde sign, yellow tilde sign. So it yeah, it doesn't go ahead and apply your code directly. It will ask you for your approval. You provide yes, and it will start doing that. So there are flags which actually can bypass this. So like when you're running a non-interactive way, like in a pipeline, you cannot go ahead and approve a kind of CLI or from a pipeline. You cannot do that. So in those cases, Terraform provides you some uh, flags which you can use. There is a flag called auto approve. Okay, so our resource group has been created. UK South, all looks good. Okay, so our code ran fine. If you see, apply complete, resources 1 added, 0 changed, 0 destroyed. And this is your Terraform state file. Terraform state file is where Terraform keeps track of all the infrastructure that it has created. This is where like we created a resource group. So if you see this tf state file, if you go down, so if you see instances, so in the resources block you see the provider, the instances. So there is this id, witness key rg. So this is where Terraform keeps track of all the resources that it has created. So any changes, any updates to this particular resource will be tracked here. All the properties, whatever you change. This is very unique to Terraform and the state file. I mean, I really love this idea that they actually track your infrastructure, and it's not like you can just I mean, you have no idea what you have created, and then you run it again and it destroys it, or all those things. So let's add some tags. Just we want to change our existing resource group, so add some values like, so let me add tags. Let me add a value demo. Yeah, that should be good. All right, let me do a demo app. Okay, let's save it and do a Terraform plan again. So now if you see, there's a tilde sign to update in place. It tells you what it's going to do. So it's gonna add the tags to an existing resource, and plan says 0 to add, 1 to change, 0 to destroy, which is what we expected. So let's do the Terraform apply now. Apply. So I just canceled it to show you one of the flags. It's called auto approve. So I do a Terraform apply hyphen hyphen auto approve. So now it will not ask me to approve this particular deployment. It will just go ahead and apply the changes. And that is done. Apply complete. Resource 0 added, 1 changed, 0 destroyed. So that's the flag that you will be using in your pipelines when you create pipelines. Let's go ahead and check. I'll have to refresh from the browser. So the tag is added. Yep, as you see, it's a free plan. That's why I was not hiding all the the client IDs and secrets. So anyways, let's get back to our tutorial. Now we will do a Terraform destroy. So Terraform destroy is, as the command says, it will destroy everything that was created from this particular Terraform configuration. Like whatever was there in the Terraform state file will get destroyed. So if you read this, it will tell you, so there's this red minus sign destroy, and what it's gonna do. So this particular resource.rg resource group.rg will be destroyed. 0 to add, 0 to change, 1 to destroy. So whenever you run any of the commands, it's very important for you to look what Terraform is telling you and what it's gonna do. So you have an idea of like whether to approve it or to just cancel it, and make the necessary changes, so you don't end up destroying something that you did not intend to. But for our case, we are just following the tutorial. So it is destroyed. And go back to my sorry, not my Terraform's tutorial, and it says the same. We have done this, we have seen all these things. The state file, we saw the state file in action where the resource gets created and all. So we have done that part. Next steps. Okay, let me go to the next one. Okay, so now it says to create a new resource. So this new resource, if you see the code, is to create a virtual network, and it's a resource block. Copy that, add it to your configuration. I'll just paste it. So it creates a virtual network. Again, same coding method. The resource block, resource Azure RM virtual network, which is a Terraform defined value, which tells it's like an internal keyword. So that's the keyword for virtual network. VNet, the name that I use for identifier. It's like a variable for in Terraform for this particular resource. So you can give whatever you like. I'll change my name and let the address space remain the same, and location is West US. I can change that to UK South, but let me just run a Terraform plan. So it says 2 to add. So 2 to add is like 1 to create the resource group. The next is the virtual network. So there are certain commands, like if you see there's a note, you didn't use the out option to save this plan, so we haven't saved this plan. So if anything changes in the code before, I think after this particular plan, so it won't be shown in if you apply it. So every time you apply as well, you will have to have a look what it's going to do. So our last plan is to just create the resource group and create the virtual network. Terraform, apply, auto approve, so I don't have to type yes again. And eventually when you start using Azure DevOps pipelines for deploying these configurations, you will be using this flag. I have created this virtual network in WestUS too. This I have made that error knowingly just to show what happens when, like, there are certain resources that don't allow you to change certain value, like certain properties. I'll just tell you why I did that. So if you see, the apply is complete, resources to added, zero changed. So let me go back to my resource group, and where is it? I mean, there are various ways to go to your particular resource group. I'll go from here. So since we created a VNet, there's a default network watcher RG that gets created. So because our VNet was in WestUS 2, it created the default resource group in that location. If you open that, it has got a network watcher for that particular region. Let's go back to our resource group, and there's the VNet, Fitness Geek VNet test. The location is WestUS 2, which we will try to change. So there are certain properties of certain resources which cannot be changed in place. This is why I created this VNet in this region. So we would try to change it and see what error we get. So let's change the location. So right now I'm showing you a technique where you can call the resource group and use its property called location. So I'm just using the keyword Azure RM resource group and then using the identifier and the location. That's how you use it. The keyword .rg .location. So it will fetch the location from our resource block for resource group. It's a technique that you'll be using more often when you start coding. So let's try to run our Terraform apply, auto approve, sorry, Terraform plan. Now if you see, there is a force replacement, destroy and then create replacement. So it's a way Terraform tells you that it cannot update it in place, and it will have to recreate that resource and destroy the one we have created before. So if you see the plan, 1 to add, 0 to change, 1 to destroy, and let's do that. So even when I'm following the the tutorial from Terraform, I'm making these few mistakes to just show you the things that you will face in real time when you start coding with Terraform. So they're like small tips and tricks, and if you are just starting, so you will definitely see all these issues, and the demos usually don't justify, they don't actually make sense sometimes because they don't show you what the real world issues would be. So we have completed, and let me just refresh it. Yep, so UK South, this is our virtual network, our address space, address count, address range as defined in our configuration. One added, 0 changed, one destroyed. So this particular mistake that I made, the the virtual network region name that I chose was just to make sure that we see this in action, where a thing gets replaced after destroying the original resource. We have added tags, we have done this. Destroy infrastructure, so we have done the change. On the left, if you see, so we have installed Terraform, we have built some configuration, we have done the changes. Now we are in the last bit where we destroy the infrastructure. As the name says, it will destroy everything that is inside the state file. So whatever configuration was created from your code, whatever infrastructure was created from your code will get destroyed. So you have to be very careful while using the Terraform destroy. It is good for you when you do all these, POCs and testing stuff. But in case of pipelines, you usually don't have a destroy pipeline unless you're doing something in sandbox and you want to destroy it. Yeah, even in that case, like, you don't write a Terraform destroy pipeline, you just comment a particular resource and it gets destroyed because Terraform cannot see that configuration and it thinks that you want to destroy it. So commenting any resource is also very dangerous. It will create a plan where it actually destroys it. So next bit, yeah, we have destroyed our infrastructure before. So yeah, next bit is to see the input variables. So like, for example, if you wanted to write the code in a way that it will ask you where you want to deploy it, so you leave the location as a variable, or you leave the name as a variable, like whatever you want. Either you want to do it in an interactive way where you enter it. So if you see, we have got a variables.df. Let me create a variable. Yeah, so there's an extension for Terraform. If you download that, it will yeah, it will give you that IntelliSense thing. And I have created a variable called rgname, and I'll use the default as UK South. Let me save this file, go back to our main. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that variable, default variable, instead of hard coding the location. I haven't approved the previous destroy. Okay, let me destroy that. While it is destroying, let me tell you that, so input variable, so the location in resource group is hard coded, the name is hard coded, even our tags are like all hard coded. So if you don't want to pass the values straight from the configuration file, you want to use it as a variable, and like depending on your environment you change those values. That can also, that is, very much possible. And it gives Terraform gives you the variable usage, like how to use the variables. You create a file called variables.tf, or you can just use as a local variable. But just for this uh, video, we are just using what the Terraform tells us to do. We will define the variable in our variables.tf and then use it. So how you use that, if you see, this is our variable. The name of our variable is rg name. Sorry, yeah, let me use the location. Yeah, we don't want to change the rg name to variable. Let's use the location for the rg. The default value UK South. Let me copy this thing, go to my main, and in location, what I'm gonna do is type var dot the variable name. So now when you execute it, it is gonna search for this particular variable, and if it finds that particular variable in the configuration files, it will pull it from there. Otherwise, it will give you an interactive way to input that particular variable name. So since we have provided a default, so let me do a Terraform plan. If you see, it has picked UK South from our variable, and that's what I wanted to show in this part of the demo. So the default value gets pulled in. Okay, let me change it to West Europe. I'm just showing you how this changes the entire plan, like one small change in a variable. And so how this is one of the things that you will be using a lot. Like for production, you want a different location, or for test you want a different location, or for any variable, like the pricing tier. For test you want basic, and for production you want a premium. So all those variables can be defined and can be passed via a set of a file called like which extension is tfvars. That's where you store the variable with values. It's a key pair, key value, pair. So anyways, let's go ahead and do that. Change back to UK South. Okay, works all right. The default value is taking place. So yeah, so the input variable bit is done. Let me just remove it from the default value. Let me just remove it. Let me add a description. So when you write your code, you will it's a very good practice to define all your variables, so you know what actually that variable is gonna do. So when you don't give a default value and you save it and then you run unsupported argument. Okay, so if you see the description, I've written description. So yeah, I need to just remove that, but let me do that and save. That should be fine. And see now, because we don't have a default value, it is asking me to provide it. And if I provide it, enter it here. So this is an interactive way of passing the variable. And now you see UK South again. So that is all good, but what if, like, when you have pipelines, you cannot pass those values interactively. So let me define a config.tfvars. So this particular file is what passes the actual values for these variables. Okay, so yeah, this documentation tutorial doesn't say any talk about that, but I'll show you how that happens. The last bit of this tutorial is like defining an output. So that's like if you want to use it in a different, for example, if you create a resource and you want to use a property of it in a different block, then you can create a output resource, like an output variable for that, and you will be able to use that value in your other resource block. For example, in this one, they are trying to output the resource group ID. It can be anything in your case, like whenever you run a big project, you want certain values to be stored somewhere, like as an output, or you want to use a value from something which is not defined inside the code block, like a resource group ID is not known until the resource group is created. That can only be known after it has been created. So that's like an output block will fetch that and show you. Anyways, let me show you how we use config.tfvars, like passing the variables with values directly from config. So we created a file called config.tfvars, use the variable from the variables.tf, give a give the value of West Europe, and now when you run it, okay, so I ran Terraform plan. So when you want to use the tf, like the variable file, the command changes, you'll have to provide a flag, the var file and the location of the file. Since I did not provide that, it is still assuming me to pass it interactively. So now it is asking me to pass the value for location, even though I have used a tfvar file. Unless and until I pass it, Terraform will not be able to identify that value. So when you run it, when you run configurations and pipelines, and if you missed the variable like tfvar file in your actual command file while you run a plan or uh, something, you will see the pipeline would keep running because it is expecting a value and it doesn't get the value. It will just keep hanging there, and you will think that you've provided everything and it would be running fine, but it would just keep hanging there until it finds the value. Okay, so nothing was provided. That's all right. Let me do the Terraform plan var file and the location name. It is in our root, so equals to the file name, that is config.tf vars, and let me run that. Yeah, it looks all right. Var file equals to, okay, specify working directory global blah blah blah. Too many command line arguments. Hmm, that is interesting. It doesn't say a lot. The location looks alright for the file. Okay. Okay, so I think the location has got an issue. No, I don't think this will work. All right. Okay. So yeah. So there's this space in between the var file and equal to. So yeah, it doesn't like it. So let me remove that and pass the files again, and this should work. So now we are doing a Terraform plan with the var file, and if you see, it has fetched West Europe from our tf var file, and that's exactly what we wanted. So when you want to run the configuration against different environments, you have different folders having different like config files as tf-var files, and these will get passed for your particular environments. So that's how you manage Terraform, and all looks good. Let me go ahead and yeah, so we learned how to use the tf-var file. Let me do let's do the output value, the output, to fetch the output values from a particular resource. That's the last bit of this demo. Pretty simple. You can create an outputs.tf file if you want, or just pass it inside your main.tf, like however you like it. If you want separating it, then you can, like, a good practice is to have an output.tf where you output all the file or all the values that you want from your entire configuration. So you keep all those output variables there. So if you see, as a user of Terraform, you may only be interested in a few values of importance, blah 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 blah. And anyways, let's just copy it, because there are values that you don't know while you actually run it. So like, it's a runtime. For example, this one, it will actually fetch me the resource group ID for the resource group we have created. Let's do the plan. If you see, I'm still using the var file. If you see, at the end of this plan, changes to outputs resource group ID known after apply. So it cannot guess now, because it's not like it's going into the Azure resource and finding the resource group ID and fetching it. It's only when you execute the code, it's gonna go there. Like, it's only after the apply you'll be able to find that value. Okay, so we will do the same. Terraform apply, var file, config tf-vars, and auto approve. This should do it. So this entire configuration will be pushed with the tf-var file. So 2 to add, 0 to change, 0 to destroy. There will be an output. So yeah, so our changes are taking place, we have created. And now if you see, there's an apply complete, resources to added, zero change, zero destroyed. In outputs there is a resource group ID. It has the fitness group, fitness geek RG. So this is how an output thing gets, like output variable gets passed after an apply. So like if you want to use this value can be used in a different block, or like if you want a URL to be, you want to know the URL after something gets created for like an app service or something, you can pass that. And yes, like in future what we're going to do is we will use Terraform in combination with Azure DevOps and our Azure cloud, but that is for something for future. For now I just use the Terraform's tutorial, and we just completed that tutorial. The last bit is the store remote state. Yeah, this particular tutorial wants you to store it in Terraform cloud. Obviously Terraform wants people to use the Terraform cloud, but we will store it in our Azure storage account. Yeah, we will do that in future, like we will migrate our local state file to Azure storage account. We will do that in our next video. For today I think we are good, and I would just end this video here. Thank you so much for all the support. Please do like and subscribe this channel if you haven't yet. And yep, let me just destroy everything. Keep supporting. Thank you so much. Bye bye.